Hello, welcome to the next Outlast recap show. I'm Alex, the host and producer of Outlast. I'm joined by Jen, as always, as we recap and give some behind the scenes and additional info about episode 2 of Outlast, titled Red Flags. This is your usual reminder here at the top that if you haven't yet watched the actual episode 2 of Outlast, you should go do that. And we'll be waiting for you right here when you get back. There will be spoilers, of course, for that episode. And also the first one, you should go back and watch that one if you haven't yet. So, we're going to talk about episode 2 of Outlast. I guess overall first, Jen, what were your takes, reactions to this episode, maybe story, product-wise, compared to episode 1? I have my take, but get your overall reaction here first about your enjoyment of the episode.
Yeah, I I think it's overall good episode. I think it's kind of almost like a building episode. I don't know how else to say that. Then it's kind of just getting to see more of gameplay start to happen. That first 2 hours, they can only do so much.
Yeah.
But the Green Tribe having to go to tribal again, you start to see things really start to take shape. Little confusing here or there because they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But overall, by the end, you start to really see where things land. I think overall, because I know what happens the whole season, I know that this isn't the most exciting episode, but I still think it's fun to see personalities start to come out and there's some really fun confessionals in this episode that really made me laugh.
I think I would say something similar in that, this maybe from a gameplay intrigue perspective is one of the more straight up and down votes, frankly, in this entire season. We're 2 weeks in, a total of 12 episodes, so there's a whole lot more to come, but this is like as I don't know. It's because there are swirling plans that we'll talk about, right? It's not a done deal. But, it's a unanimous vote. You kind of have an idea that Allie was one of the people on the hot seat. That's what happens. And so, again, it's interesting to see how we get there, even if the result is maybe somewhat predictable. But, yeah, you said it, too. There's still a lot of fun moments, I think, here. I loved Anna's confessional was tons of fun. I think the whole challenge intrigue, the rising tensions between tribes is interesting. So I guess, before we get into any one moment particularly, what I'll ask you first, as we will do every episode, what's your standout moment, the biggest thing from this episode, most enjoyable, most interesting that you want to camp out in here to start?
I really think, I don't know if this is what we should spend too much time on, other than I can't not mention the moments where Adam is just believes that he can find the idol.
Yeah, this one really got you. Like, I thought it was funny, but you thought it was really funny.
Sorry, sue me.
It's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I just think it's like you get to see Adam's personality, right. And I know Adam, and I do know that he believes that he would find the idol.
Sure.
And so it's just funny to know, as a viewer perspective, that Ty took the note. Yep. Nobody knows about the note. Ty knows where the idol is, and nobody else knows what's going on. So it just kind of is this comedy moment.
Yeah, it's like a wink to the audience.
Exactly. And so that, I think,
and there's like a few of those that happen in the first and this episode on the Orange Tribe. Again, like knowing that Ty has, at least is the one with the knowledge of this stuff. Yeah, like Adam is saying, like, are we going to get a hint? Did we get a hint? And the answer is yes. You know, they did. But Ty got it, and so nobody else saw it. I think there's another time in the first episode where, you know, when they start ripping all the things off of the trees, someone's like, oh, watch it, the idol be one of these things, or, you know, something to that effect. And it is, you know, but they don't know. The only person who knows is Ty. And so, yeah, it's funny.
I think the other thing is I love Anna's confessional.
Yeah.
Because I think she does such a great job of telling what's going on at camp that maybe we didn't get footage of, or we did, but this is a better telling, and it's more, you know, it's interesting, it's funny. She's a great storyteller. I love that she's, you know, just saying that she's a stay-at-home mom and that she, you know, isn't sharing that she has all this rich knowledge of Survivor. And simultaneously she's like, how is this all gonna work? What are we gonna do? And I think this is the interesting part of Survivor, where you have the tribe who doesn't go to tribal council, you know, several times in a row. They don't really know what to do. They're kind of floundering a little bit, maybe, or just kind of going in all of these different directions because they don't have to make a choice. Orange hasn't been to tribal yet. You know, it remains to be seen if they will. But you can see at some point the people will have to, whether it's at a merge or before then. And you can see these groups already kind of starting to take form. You know, like Adam and Sky talked about their alliance. Cody's talking about the option he has. Anna is expressing her frustration of, like, just sitting around and not doing stuff. So it's one of those, like you see on the real show too, like, yeah, as you said, when you have a group that hasn't had a chance to go to tribal, the stuff maybe starts to, like, fester more intensely than the group that does go to tribal council and gets to air it out, you know. And so, you know, if and when Orange ever does get to tribal council, you can see the seeds here of some really chaotic, explosive stuff, which may take place. Well, and I think they've had more time to, and maybe have been more open about, you know, who is and who isn't playing hard or planning to play hard, or, you know, a gamer, where Cody's shared that in the very first sentence that he explains about himself, that he's applied to be on Survivor 4 times. That's a nod, you know.
100%,
and I think you kind of get the gist that people are trying to figure that out. And so you see Anna saying, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I am happy to be here away from my kid. I think is
it's super intentional.
Exactly. But she is one of those people that has watched every single episode, listens to the podcasts. You know, and so I think it's interesting to see, and then they're even making assumptions and saying that people are lying, but they're saying the wrong people are lying, right? They think Sky is knows more about Survivor than she does.
I think Anna says that, right? Like, does she says she doesn't know anything. Either she really doesn't, or she's lying about it, and either option's not good. You know. I think for me, like, other than those things you mentioned, the challenge I thought was really interesting. We can talk about it maybe more, or we can talk about it now, but this is the Idle Hands Challenge, Classic Survivor one, and two things about it that are interesting, and one leads into the other. One is that, you know, Survivor doesn't do this anymore because it's one of those challenges that got hacked, quote unquote, right? And it was by people doing what Isaac does in the final round of Outlast, where, you know, if you just launch yours as high as you can up in the air and then just sell out to knock the other person's off, there's, like, it's a pretty easy way to win. Now, of course, the counter is if once you see somebody launch theirs, you've got to be ready to launch yours too, and you just throw it even higher, and at that point the game's not fun, you know. But Isaac was the only person to try it, and it worked, which was interesting. I wondered if anybody would do that, And then that led to Dan's voiced frustration with their tactics. You know, it says that the integrity was low. There's a little bit of bickering back and forth between him and the orange side about, you know, the sportingness of taking that approach, which is, you know, it's a competition. Like, Dan's a competitive guy, obviously. Like, he, to his own credit, like, admits that he's a sore loser and it isn't like carrying this grudge. He's like, yeah, I got hot because I hate to lose. I'm a sore loser, right? Like, that's fair. But it's intriguing, interesting stuff. People aren't just here goofing around. Like, they're taking it really seriously. They're taking it hard when they lose. And when somebody pulls one over on you, as Orange did on Green again for the second time, like, there's some frustration there. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's the only place to place your frustration because that's the nature of the game at this point. And it's frustrating to think, okay, now we have to go do the same thing again. And it's even more frustrating than in Real Survivor because it was literally not even an hour ago.
Yeah.
That they
lost last time.
That they just lost.
Yeah, maybe
and
an
went
hour
to
or two.
tribal.
Yeah.
And so it's just very fresh.
For sure.
I also, like, in real time as we were watching this challenge, I was waiting for somebody to throw it up. Mm-hmm. And I wondered if it was intentional for Orange to wait till the last person to do that. Because, again, like you said, once you figure out that hack, then it's just whoever can throw it up the highest.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was really smart, if it was intentional, to wait till the last point to do that, to ensure the win and not give off, you know, this is how you win the challenge.
Yeah, totally. Like, and Isaac was certainly not the only person who knew about it. Like, Elizabeth knows about this. I would reckon Anna knows about this. Adam certainly knows about this because we've talked about it in our own Survivor rewatch conversations before. Like, people know this is a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. They held it until the last second. We can camp out on the challenge a little bit more. I think that a couple other notes with the challenge. This was a random draw that we did here, so we didn't have the tribes like set their order or set matchups or whatever. We just did a random draw. Kind of thought that would be the most fair way of going about it. I could see either argument. I could see it either way, you know. But created some interesting matchups. A thing that I noticed watching through it again here recently is, like, you know, Green has the early lead here, right? They're like up 2-1. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, first to 5, so you still need 3 more. But I think the real tide turner here was they're up 2-1, and then they lose a matchup that on paper they should win. It was David versus Sky, and lengthwise, reach-wise, like, David has the upper hand for sure. But Sky kind of turns an upset here, and I think that was a momentum shifter, you know, and a tide turner, because if David wins that, like, maybe you would expect him to. Now Green's up 3-1.
Right.
Orange is really on the back foot. They've got to win 4 out of the next 6, you know, as opposed to 3 out of the next 5, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a big deal. And, you know, looking at some of those next matchups, right, like, it's Adam and Allie. Like, Adam's probably always going to win that one.
I don't know. He also pulls, like, a pretty sick, like, pick and roll situation.
Yeah, Adam did a great. That one was not close. So I'm saying, like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He probably wins that one always.
Sorry. Yeah.
But then it's a toss up, like Cody and Sam. Cody wins that one, but that could go either way easily. You know, Isaac and Anna obviously went to video because they hit so closely. Like, it really could have gone Green's way with a few key differences. And then again, drilling down on the challenge here, there's 2 times in the challenge where we did actually, like, stop and look at the footage because it was so close. The first one was the Ty Dan first round, and that one was, you know, indeterminable. They hit it what appeared to be the exact same time, so we just had them redo it. And then we checked the last round too, because Isaac and Anna's was close too, but after looking at it, it was clear that Anna's hit the ground first. So, it got the umpire went to New York and put the headset on to review the footage. And the call on the field stood in that case. But yeah, we really did stop, pause the cameras. I went over and looked at the footage, and we frame by framed it and saw which one hit first. Any other challenge stuff? We can move on to the other main points of the episode.
Leads into the next part of it, but I think it was just interesting to watch Allie. Allie has no idea that her name was the next name up to bat, right? Yeah, so is with the Alliance in first episode, it was Jake, then Allie as the next vote, and then Allie, after the challenge, feeling bad, kind of just keeps saying what feels like over and over. I didn't, blaming herself.
Yeah.
And it's just as you're watching it and that her name is out there and probably what the vote might be with the majority alliance.
Yeah.
You're just kind of shh, stop talking or do something else, this whole thing with Sam isn't going to pan out because it's not what's going to work for Abby and Elizabeth and David. And so it's just kind of painful to watch from this side. And then additionally painful to see her think she's good. And so just the heartbreak there.
Totally. Yeah. Rewatching it again. Yeah, definitely. You feel okay, she's in a tough position here. Maybe she doesn't realize initially the precariousness of her spot. But yeah, she's doing herself no favors by continuing a few times, to raise I didn't do well either. And, that's an innocuous, innocent thing to say. But in a game like Outlast, that's all it takes, every micro decision, everything you say can be used against you, not just in the court of law, but at tribal council as well. And so, yeah, it's you can see maybe, and Anna says it in her confessional, that Allie keeps kind of assuming some of the blame, and that's not necessarily going over well for her. So, kind of was an extra nail in the coffin. Let's talk about, as we, talking about the pre-vote stuff, let's talk about the Sam of it all, because that's the other big thing, probably the big thing or storyline happening here on Green leading into the vote. So Sam, gathers everyone around, basically is do we want to come to a consensus? I know that other people have traveled further, have given up more, to be here, and I don't like voting people out. So, and then he just kind of leaves it there, and I think Anna and then maybe Elizabeth are or are you trying to draw votes on yourself because you have the idol? And he's yeah, maybe. And he really plays that out. And so we talked about this earlier, but this really felt from Sam, initially, I don't know if he had thought this all the way to its conclusion when he started talking, but he was adaptive enough to recognize that this if the sentiment was oh, thanks so much for saying something, Sam, okay, yeah, we'll just vote Sam. I think that was a thing that maybe he was prepared for a possibility. I don't think he expected that would be it. But he was also prepared for the possibility of everyone being oh, okay, and then rolling with it and playing it off really well, and playing it off as gameplay or as part of a plan. And making the most of that situation. Because, Sam just is a really nice guy. I think, again, if in that situation people would have been, thank goodness somebody said something, okay, Sam, we'll vote you out. He would have taken it. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have been happy about it. and he probably would have regretted it. But he's also a gamer and competitive and wants to play, and so when he realized that, no, I've got like people around here who want me to play and want to play with me, it's like, great. He takes that ball and runs with it too.
Yeah, and I think too, we underestimate as viewers how difficult it is to come back after a challenge and right before tribal to that kind of, okay, what do we do? And to kind of have that first comment or statement to kind of get the ball rolling. And it's like he chose this as the way to kind of start the conversation.
Yeah.
And then knowing Elizabeth, I'm curious if her comment was a way to save her alliance, if she was thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
Or to kind of steer the conversation away from saying, okay, yeah, Sam.
Right.
She is that smart. She is that strategic. So I'll give her that credit if that's what happened. And even if not, it's what ended up keeping him there.
Yeah.
Because then he was able to shift and play into that.
Yep.
And then that allowed that narrative to allow them to get Allie out.
Yeah.
Where it's like, great, we have Sam. That's an easy choice. Like, we don't need the guys. When in reality, they're off having conversations saying, no, we want you here. You're a part of this alliance. Let's use that idol for all of us.
Right.
If you have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which he does not.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it all adds up to what is like really and truly a full blindside on Allie. Like, we see her talking about the like alliance she has with the other women, which, you know, in reality doesn't include her, sadly. But she really believed it, obviously. You know, she talked pretty confidently about their agency in the vote, you know. And it's to the credit of Sam, who, you know, kind of pulled this diversion. But then also to, like, I think you see Abby in particular, like, be really willing to, like, pull the wool over her eyes and, like, you know, lead her to the slaughter, more or less. Yeah, Abby even refers to it in her voting confessional where, you know, you don't see the name written down, but she's talking about lying to Allie, which we do see on camera right before they leave for tribal, where Allie's like, hey, is it still, like, what's the plan? And Abby's like, oh, I thought it was Sam. I've only heard Sam, you know, which is just a lie.
Yeah.
Because it's Allie and she doesn't want to clue her into it. So, yeah, really good. It's a textbook how to pull off a blindside, you know. It's good stuff. But yeah, Allie is the unfortunate kind of victim of their gameplay in this case. Let's go back and talk about some of the things that happened here earlier in the episode. Let's talk about David, going back to the Green Tribe at the beginning of the episode, talking about receiving that vote last time. He receives another one this time, so he's been the quote-unquote like decoy boot. Both times Green's gone to tribal council here, but yeah, David talks about I don't know, kind of brushing off receiving the vote, knowing it's just the one person, the one from the one going home. But he also talks about, and I thought this was really insightful and interesting, even in one vote, it's like how difficult it is to vote people out. It's like one of those parallels to the real show on TV of like, you hear people talking about like how painful and challenging that is, and like our players are experiencing the same thing, even on a lower stakes, lower intensity version of that. Yeah, he talks about how hard it was to vote someone out and kind of like ruin their their weekend or their dream. Maybe not. That's maybe a little bit too dramatic, but yeah, I found that to be really interesting. Even after one vote, you know, it's a thing that people are already feeling.
Yeah, and I think too, because as the weekend goes on and we talk to players afterwards, I think this is maybe when they start feeling how real it is and the mind games and having to sift through all of it and just how mentally exhausting it is, while also emotionally taxing, because you're realizing, I don't want this to be me. I know exactly how they're going to feel. And so it is really playing out this part of the show that you don't normally experience in everyday life. So I understand that. I think David coming out of that and saying, you know, I need to lower my threat level, I think is interesting overall. And am curious, we don't necessarily see it, but what conversations does he have to either lower his threat level or, you know, strengthen the alliance to say, hey, like, who's saying I'm the vote? Like,
yeah. That's a good point.
You know, why was my name? But you also can't go too hot and, you know, pull whatever you...
Totally.
You know...
Totally. Yeah.
Flame
maligned,
out. Yeah.
Decoy boot. Yeah.
But, like, I think there is validity in saying, like, where did this come from?
Right.
Obviously, like, did Jake just choose to put my name down? You know, like, and so I'm curious if those conversations were had.
Yeah, that's a great point and a good observation. And, like, you know, it even goes back to, like, is David's assessment of, like, oh, my threat level's too high, even the correct one to begin with? Like,
that's what I wonder.
Right, like, or is it actually the opposite? Like, am I getting votes now, especially twice in a row, like, because for the opposite reason, where I'm, like, seen as, oh, that's an easy person to vote out, you know? And so, yeah, like, great question. I think you're totally right that, like, the move, whether or not it happened, we didn't see it, at least on camera, was, was he able to talk to a Dan or Elizabeth or an Abby or an Anna or a Sam, be like, hey, how did it end up being my name? Like, in a way that's not, you know, putting people on edge, but is getting to the bottom of things and, you know, re-establishing himself. Because it does feel like he's in a good insulated spot. Like, when Dan's talking, he's like, I want to work with Elizabeth, David, and Abby. Like, those are the ones that he identifies. But
yeah, it's like establishing that you have value in this alliance and what do you bring, you know, so that way when it is up against your alliance, you're able to say, hey, I'm not the bottom because I just had 2 votes.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the easy vote here. It's this other person.
Yeah. The other thing he mentions in that confessional is kind of attributing the first vote or the agency therein to Elizabeth and Dan, which I think is noteworthy, worth clocking, you know, as we get into it, of like, okay, in a sweeping majority like this, you know, who's a decision maker? And at least at first, from David's perspective, it's Elizabeth and Dan that are kind of pulling the strings. A couple other, like, alliance notes here that maybe we haven't talked about too much. You get Adam and Skye both give a confessional, and they both talk about their alliance with one another. Like, this was probably an expectation. I know that Adam and Skye are 2 of the people that are connected before the game, so you would expect that they probably work together. And I thought it was really interesting, Adam's perspective in particular. Like, from Skye's, you could understand why, oh, here's a person I know, there's a safe first step. For someone who in Skye's case, like, really is not schooled on social strategy games or shows. She's here. She is smart and knows how to play other strategic games, you know, just not particularly this one.
Yeah, she's in marketing, right? So, like,
yeah, and she can obviously talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Adam says, like, explicitly, like, I wanted to work with Skye because I trust that she doesn't know enough about the game to lie to me. And so he's like, I'm going to get a direct source of patently true information, you know, from her, which I think is a really interesting take and gameplay or game plan from him in particular and kind of locking that in.
Yeah, you're not questioning, is Anna lying to me about her profession and how much she knows about Survivor, and you don't know Cody, Hannah, or anyone else on the tribe, so you are going to stick to the person you know and trust that kind of initial instinct and play off of that.
And then Anna talks about, and Cody both kind of talk about their multitude of options. I think Anna in particular, right, she's talking about the Women's Alliance, which is worth mentioning here. We've already talked about how entertaining, fun that confessional is, but yeah, I that was one that I think the most fun part for me in editing is going through the confessionals, because that's stuff that I maybe saw a quarter of confessionals, like I maybe conducted a quarter of the confessionals, and so most of them I haven't heard before, and so I'll just be going through, and then you hear something funny, and it's delightful, to discover it. And so this was one that I really busted up at, when she's describing, like, okay, the Women's Alliance is comprised of me, Sky, who's never watched the show or is lying about it, Emily, whose sister is on the other tribe, and Hannah, who is stealing tree mail and putting it in her bra so that nobody can see it. Like, what a cluster, red flags, as she coins the episode with. But, in both Anna and Cody's cases, they're talking about, like, I've got options here, like there are different paths that they can go down, which on one hand puts them in a position where they can make a decision and have agency, but on the other, it does set up this tribe, if they go to tribal council, to have, like, they're not going to be on the same page. Like, it doesn't sound like it would be a unanimous, easy decision where it's like, oh, everybody but this one person knows it's going to be that one person, right?
Yeah.
Great. And then tribal council happens. I don't think there's a whole lot that is of note there. We get even more talk of this kind of animosity between tribes, which I find to be really interesting, how fully at each other's throats, they've gotten in just a few hours. But yeah, I think, like, Abby and David explain it well at Tribal, where it's wild how, the color of the buff that you get can make you decide if you like a person or not, off the rip. And,
Well, I think I liked what Abby said, where it's like, because they're the ones sending you here to vote out your people.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, that, that's where you can place your anger or upset and kind of feel it out there, because you don't really have any other option.
Yeah, going back to the Hannah tree mail thing too, this was something that happened that didn't get caught on camera, and Hannah talks about it in, like, confessionals every once in a while, but it's not really relevant other than this soundbite. But we prepared tree mail for every challenge going into the weekend, where we would put it out at the beginning of each round. And it's just, traditional Survivor tree mail where there's a silly little rhyme about what the challenge is going to be. And so the first one was, like, sitting there waiting for them when they got to camp. And I think both tribes, actually, it doesn't ever make air, but Elizabeth does basically the same thing on the Green tribe, where she, like, takes it thinking it's a clue or something and hides it. But Hannah does it, and then I guess in such a way, or she tells everybody later so that everybody knows about it, and it maybe raises some, like, oh, she's really out hard to play. So, but we stopped doing tree mail like 3 rounds in, because it was just one other logistic that we were struggling to keep up.
It was exhausting.
Yeah, to run tree mail to both camps at the beginning of every round. So I didn't include it in the show because it doesn't matter and we don't continue it. But
yeah, I didn't have enough signage to write tree mail. Otherwise, I would have labeled it.
Yeah.
But thought that we weren't going to be that obvious
Yeah.
to like just place a scroll
Right.
in a
It's in a basket
In a
next
basket.
to their water
Yeah.
cooler, right? So it's pretty transparent.
yeah. But it was, Liz and I roaming around in the gator, like
Right.
being like, oh, we have to go do this and this. Oh, and tree mail.
Yeah.
And then also, making sure it was the right one. It was just like overcomplicating such a like meaningless thing.
It was very. It would have been. If we kept at it, it would have provided some stuff, namely for the tribe that didn't go to tribal council to like do and talk about, but a lot of squeeze for not a lot of juice. I want to do one last special shout out to 2 quotes that almost were the episode title but got cut to red flags. It was Elizabeth saying, "I don't want to hug," when saying that if you vote me out, I don't want to hug. And then Sky saying "sue me," which I still laugh at. I don't know if I've heard someone say "sue me" since like 2008 until this, but I'm just having a good time, so sue me.
Yeah, I feel like Orange tribe really has the personality,
no doubt, yeah,
on their tribe where all of their confessionals and kind of moments over there are just funny because they do have so much more time.
Yeah,
the Green tribe's like just in the woods trying to like strategize and find idols, and Orange gets to, I don't know, goof a little bit more.
Probably like 3 or 4 of the biggest personalities on the show are on the Orange tribe. Like by big, I mean like the biggest, unmissable, first person you notice in a room personalities.
Yeah, they're personality hires.
Like,
for sure, yeah.
Sky, Adam, Anna, Cody are all. I would put Dan in the top 5 too.
Yeah.
But I think those are the 5 biggest personalities on the cast, and 4 of them are on the Orange tribe. So didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
But it did make it fun because they're play off each other. Okay, great. I think that's everything from the episode. Any other parts we missed that you want to talk about before we move on to Players of the Week?
I just want to say I loved watching Tribal this time and having the angle. We get to see their votes. And yeah, again, just, I like the sound bites that you've picked out so far of like when they say who they're voting for.
Sure.
It's another thing that we don't get to see until the end. So it's fun to kind of hear what they came up with or what they're thinking. And I think Abby's is really good in that she kind of acknowledges that gameplay and does feel bad about it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Players of the Week. Last week, as a reminder, Jen gave Ty her Player of the Week. I gave mine to Elizabeth. Who is receiving your Player of the Week award and why?
I do think my Player of the Week is Abby.
Okay.
Because of what we've discussed as far as her gameplay this episode of, kind of, it looked to me like leading the conversations of talking to Sam and saying, hey, we want you. Let's, we were thinking Allie. Yeah. And then, going to Allie and so nonchalantly being like, all I've heard is Sam.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. And I think she did it so well. And I think to her own surprise probably as well, because she's not a deceitful person in real life. And then, just her ability to kind of make that all happen, I think deserves Player of the Week.
Yeah, I think that's great. That she was in my short list too. Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like it feels like in those conversations that she probably has the most agency here as far as steering the votes and getting other people on board with the plan. I'm going to go Sam for mine because I do think his working around the initial kind of self-nomination that he did really was tactically quite inspired. Like, I think that there's a version of this where, yeah, maybe, and I don't know, I would have to talk to him now. If you're hearing any weird noises, the third member of our show, Ziggy the cat, has joined the studio and is really interested in this mic.
Well, I'm trying to decide if it's worse to like pet her or throw her, in which would be more noise. But I think now the fact that her tail is hitting the microphone, we are going to gently place her away.
But yeah, I think there's a version of this where Sam, again, like I would have to talk to him to ask, like, would he consider what he said initially to be a mistake of like kind of throwing himself out there. But the way that he pivoted off of that was really strong. It did create an opportunity to kind of further entrench this blind side to happen, to make, you know, Allie and everybody else who wasn't in on the primary plan, which I guess was only Allie, feel more comfortable. And yeah, I think there's a way that this goes where maybe Sam says that and he can't like backpedal out of it, you know, or even if people are not necessarily jumping on board when they talk to him, you know, you see Elizabeth and Abby and David talk to Sam and are like, hey, are you like serious about that? And I think the way he approached that conversation was really good and effective, and that basically he was like, he ends it by saying like, well, if you think that I'm like valuable, there's not much sense in voting me out, is there? It's like he lets them come to the conclusion, and maybe as a result his own standing in the tribe and in that alliance has been boosted because he's let people come to their own opinion of, no, I want to work with Sam, I want to keep him around, right? Again, was all of this forethought? Probably not, but he rolled with it, and the effect, I think, was good for him short term, and we'll see how, you know, what dividends it pays going forward.
I have something I'm realizing right now. So and this you can cut this out if you want to, but Allie votes for David.
Allie votes for David.
So where did she get David?
Yeah, I think in her confessional she talks about, she also comes to the conclusion, like, I don't want to vote out Sam. Like, okay. I want to, like, he's helpful in challenges, you know? And so whether or not, she fed or anyone else fed her the name David, or she kind of came to that consensus independently. Even her on the way out the door, like, didn't want to vote with Sam. And, you know, we'll see next episode, you know, I won't spoil it, but like even on the way out, because Last Chance Island is in play, right? We don't see it at the end of this episode, but it starts the next episode as Allie arriving at Last Chance Island, like, and she'll talk about how she's feeling, and she even mentions like that she's like worried for Sam because she feels like he's on the outs, right? And so even on the way out, like, Sam's like ingratiated himself to her, all the while, you know, kind of being responsible for her being voted out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then once again, shout out to Anna for naming the episode Red Flags when she's talking about the potential of the Orange Women's Alliance. Okay, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for listening along to these podcasts that are longer than the actual episodes. Make sure that you're subscribed to YouTube so that you don't miss any new episodes. There's a mailing list and there's a Discord, however you prefer to get your notifications about new episodes. All of those are available to you. And again, thanks for listening. The next episode of Outlast should be coming out next Monday. Every Monday at 8 o'clock right now is the plan for releasing those, and if that changes, you probably won't hear it here because we're recording it well before they get released, but you'll hear it somewhere. So, again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.